Hi guys, welcome back to Plum and Pantry and welcome back to the October Freezer Challenge. Today I am covering days 17 through 22, which is pretty much week 3, just slightly off in the numbers of the days there. That's mostly though because I was including more days in a week earlier on in the month. If you are new to the Freezer Challenge, that is something I do every year. I do have a playlist I can link for it, where I am using stuff up from my deep freezer. It's not like a pantry challenge where I'm trying to avoid the store or only use things from there. I am just trying to use at least one thing every day from the freezer to clear out some space for some holiday baking and some freezer meals for the busy holiday season. I can link my intro video for this year's series if you want to see more details on the why and the how. But pretty much the main goal is to have negative 31 items in the freezer by the end of the month, because there's 31 days in October, and if I use at least one thing a day, that will be 31 things gone from the freezer, which should free up some space for all the other things I need to put in there. So last week we left off at actually a total of negative 25 items in the freezer, which was amazing. It put me ahead. I should be on day 25. I wasn't. That's okay. So I was really excited at the end of last week. So let's get started on day 17. Day 17. Okay, I'm looking for something fast today because I'm going to be busy running errands and then outside in the garden. I think what I'm going to do is here. I thought somewhere in here I had meatballs. Meatballs. I'm gonna make meatball subs tonight. I took out a bag of meatballs. I like these little party size meatballs from Trader Joe's. I just like that they're not gigantic. I know some people love gigantic ones. To me, these are slightly smaller than average, and they're like the perfect bite size. But I needed an easy dinner. I made meatball subs. I had marinara down in the basement that I had canned from the summer's tomatoes. We had meatballs in the freezer. I just had to pick up subs, and I was going to be out shopping that day anyways, the rolls, sub rolls. So that was an easy dinner for us, and I just served that with chips and fruit. I also, on day 17, pulled out cinnamon roll dough. I am also pulling out this cinnamon roll dough today. I'm going to let it thaw today for tomorrow's breakfast. When I make cinnamon rolls, I make a huge batch of the dough, enough to make like 7-8 pans of cinnamon rolls. And sometimes I do that on purpose, like I'll make them all up because I'll have my husband take them into work or something like that. But the last time I made them, I just divided the dough, I think, into thirds. I think there's another bag of dough out there in the freezer, and I just made enough for like 2 pans for just the family that day, and put the others in the freezer separated again for just family size amounts. And so I pulled out dough, it was frozen, put it in the fridge. In the morning it was ready to go, thawed out, perfect, ready to roll out, which is an easy way to make homemade cinnamon rolls more often, because you don't have to get up really early or eat breakfast really late because dough has to rise and all that. So 2 items on day 17. But then I did something I should not have done. I had a friend call and offer me some beef bones for making beef broth. She has a relative that lives like an hour and a half from here who runs a grass-fed beef operation, gives her meat, gives her bones for making bone broth. I was completely out of beef broth actually in the pantry when I went downstairs. And these are like the ultimate, pasture raised and grass finished, all the stuff you want. And so I needed to make bone broth anyways. This was the ideal stuff. It was free. So she brought me 6 bags of around about 2 pounds each of bones, beef bones from grass-fed cows to make beef bone broth with. I did use 1 package that day and made them. Made one batch of bone broth, and I put the other 5 in my freezer. And they're still there. I am hoping to get them all out and made before the end of the month. But yeah, so I added 5 items to my freezer. And then there's more. If you watched my Azure haul, I can link it for you. This last week when I picked up Azure, I also had a frozen pizza in there. It's a gluten-free pizza. I wanted to try Amy's brand. I put it in the deep freezer and I still have not eaten it. So I added 6 things to my freezer this week. Now, if you did not watch the intro video, how I handle this is I either have to not put it in the freezer, but I've already messed that up. What I have to do is take something else out to replace the thing I'm putting in. So if I use meatballs from the freezer and then I put something else in, I need to take another thing out so that I still have a negative thing that day. I have not had time for that yet. I still plan to, but I will take it out of my grand total so far at the end of this week when you see the numbers. Since I'm ahead, since I ended last week at negative 25 items after only 16 days, it's still okay. It's still okay, you'll see. But I do want to get that stuff out because I was really enjoying being ahead and emptying so much out. So maybe next week I will be doing a marathon day of making and canning beef bone broth and feeding myself a gluten-free pizza. We'll see. Okay, so day 18, second day of this week, I took out 1 pound of ground beef and I made a crock pot lasagna. That I did do a Crocktober recipe video with that. I can link it for you where I show you how I do lasagna in the crock pot. That is actually my go-to way to do it. I don't do it regular in the pan anymore. I don't cook the noodles and lay them all out. It's just a lot easier to me. So that was one item on day 18. On day 19, I used up 2 items. I took out 2 bags of breakfast sandwiches that had only had 2 sandwiches left in them. These were both croissant sandwiches that I made. I think I made these in a breakfast sandwich video, like a freezer stocking breakfast sandwich video. And I had several in each bag and we were down to 2 different types, 2 each in each bag. So there's 4 of us. So I took out both bags, which made 2 items and a total of 4 sandwiches. I'm counting that as 2 items, not 4, just to be clear, 2 bags. Day 20, I took out 2 pounds of ground beef to make spaghetti. I needed an easy dinner. I had marinara down in the basement. I had spaghetti in the basement, and I always make an entire pat. We like ours saucy, so I wanted to make sure I had enough beef in the sauce and enough sauce, and I always overmake the spaghetti because everyone likes it for leftovers. Send it in my husband's lunch, my daughter will eat it, all the things. So that was 2 items because it was 2 pounds of ground beef. Day 21, I made a crock pot meal. Okay, I'm doing some food preservation today, and when I'm in the kitchen all day like that, I like an easy crock pot dinner, so I'm looking for one of my pre-made crock pot meals. I need to empty this out. Here's one. What's this one? Sweet teriyaki chicken. All right, I'm gonna use this one tonight. I need to work on this drawer because it's supposed to just be orange chicken and it's obviously not anymore. This was one of those freezer chicken, stock the freezer with pre-made meals so I could just dump it in the crock pot when I need it and go. Exactly the kind of thing I'm making room for more of. Because November and December are so busy, I like in early November to make a bunch of freezer meals, breakfast and dinners, and stick them out there. So I took out one that was in a drawer in the bottom, taking up space where it should not have been. And it was a sweet teriyaki chicken. I forgot to get a picture of it, and I asked my daughter to get a picture of hers, the one who comes home later, and so she eats later, and she said she would, and then she forgot to. But so we served sweet chicken teriyaki on jasmine rice, and I think we had oranges with that. For some reason, when I make Asian food, I always feel like we have to have those canned mandarin oranges with them. I'm not sure where I get that. I also took out, though, so I had 2 items on day 21. I took out the freezer meal ready to just dump in the crock pot and go. And I also took out a bag of frozen breakfast burritos. I also just decided to pull these out for my husband's breakfast this week. There's 3 in here, so 1 a day for the next 3 days. That'll get us through a few days. These were just sausage, egg, cheese, and potato. I think those are also in a video where I did a whole bunch of different types of breakfast burritos that I put in the freezer. This one had 3 burritos left in it, so I just kept them for my husband. I make on school mornings, I make my daughters one breakfast. If my husband wants breakfast that morning, I'll make him something different. He doesn't necessarily like the same things. But he loves the frozen breakfast burritos and breakfast sandwiches, so that was 3 different mornings that he could have a breakfast burrito. So that was 2 items that day, the crock pot meal and the bag of burritos. Day 22, which is where I'm ending this video, is I took out a beef roast that was sitting on top, which I liked doing because it was a big one, and I mentioned in the last video, I like when I take out something big because it makes more space. Okay, it is actually, let's see, I'm just gonna go for this big roast in the top middle here. So I would really like to start clearing out this shelf. I think I'm gonna put it in the crock pot because I'm gone most of the day, and we're gonna make something new to me. I've been eyeing this recipe for beef and cheddar sandwiches with like crock pot beef, so we'll see how it goes. And hopefully by the time I do my freezer update, I can tell you how it went. And I'm seeing, so I have a ton of shredded zucchini up there, and I have more of it I've seen tucked in pockets here and there. So I think that is way more than I need for the year. I think I might try to freeze dry some and make zucchini flour. And I just put that in the crock pot and made beef and cheddar sandwiches, kind of like on a sub roll, shredded the beef up, put cheese over the top, melted it down, and we had grapes and chips with that too. So that was just that one item, the roast that day. So that brings this week, let's talk about just this week's numbers. I used 9 things from the freezer in those, how many days was that? 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 6 days. I used 9 things, so I used more than one a day. I did put 6 things in the freezer, the 5 bags of bones for the bone broth and the frozen pizza. So that leaves me at a grand total of this week of only using 3 things, so -3 for the week. But since I was already ahead at the end of last week with -25 items, and I added 3 more negatives this week, that puts me at 28 as a grand total so far this month, having used 28 items from, or being -28 in the freezer, which is still ahead of the game, which I was happy to see. I was a little bit stressed about putting those bones in the freezer because I knew I wasn't going to get to them this week. I did that one batch that day, but I was like, I need a day to just knock them all out, and I knew I wasn't going to happen this week. I'm going to try. It's a busy, we're heading that time already. I'm going to try. But I'm hoping to find time in the before the end of the month to pull all that stuff out and get back in the negative for those as well. So overall, I'm happy, even though I had to put stuff in the freezer and I didn't want to do that. I'm happy because I'm still at -28, and that was only 22 days in. So I'm still a bit ahead of the game. I think I will probably hold the rest, days 23 to 31 all together. It's about a week's worth, and I'll probably post it right around November 1st, like once the month is over, and hopefully I will still be, I'll be -31 or more. I'm really gonna try the last couple days to, not like the whole last week, but like the last 2 or 3 days to use a lot in the freezer, like go through and really see what I can do in there. I know that I have some things in there that aren't necessarily for eating. I mean, they are, or I don't need to make a meal that day with, which would help. I know I've got some sliced strawberries in there that I'm just gonna freeze dry. That's what I buy them for, because then it's easy to just put them in the freeze dryer, and my youngest daughter loves freeze-dried sliced strawberries, a great snack. I know that I have goat's milk in there to make soap with. I think I have pureed strawberries in there for making jam, left from like back in March or something. Either March when I bought them in the fundraiser, because my neighbors have a fundraiser every year where they sell strawberries for their football team, and even though it's a rival team, I still buy them because I think that's a great fundraiser to have, as opposed to a lot of the other junk people sell. And they're delicious strawberries. And then my strawberries usually come in late May-ish, sometimes early June. My strawberry patch that has the June bearing ones, so I get them all at once to make jam. So either from March or May, June-ish, I've got strawberries in the freezer that I think I pureed so they would be ready to make jam with. I haven't come across those yet. I think I also noticed this morning when I went to pull something out, I noticed that I have a partial package of homemade chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. Those are like my favorite, and so sometimes when I'm craving them, I will make a batch and I will freeze them in a Ziploc bag in there so that I don't have them just sitting out on the counter all the time, because I'll eat them. And then if I'm really craving one the next time, I can go just take a couple out, let them thaw, eat them. And I think I noticed a package with like 4 or 5 of those in there, so I might be snacking on cookies this week. A great reward for discovering them. Anyways, that is this week's update, leaving off on day 22, finishing day 22 of the freezer challenge. If you are still participating in the freezer challenge, how's it going for you? Let me know. Thanks for taking the time to spend with me and see what I'm doing in my freezer. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate any that you spend with me, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. I will see you guys on the next video.